Two samples of CO2 gas were produced first, one by heating strongly calcium tricarbonate, and then next by heating carbon and excess oxygen. Analysis show first 5.2 gram of CO2 contains 1.42 gram of carbon, to 4.3 gram of CO2 contains 3.1 gram of oxygen. Now, does this show the law of constant composition? So, now this whole analysis, does it show the law of constant composition? That's a question. So, first of all, we're going to bring out our table. This is our table out. First of all, we have the samples here, and we're talking about CO2 gas, and so for further, we're talking about CO2 gas. We have carbon here, and then we have oxygen. CO2 is made up of carbon and oxygen. So the first sample, and then the second sample. So the first sample, we have a 5.2 gram of CO2 gas. Don't forget the law, regardless of the method of producing the CO2, if it's truly a pure sample of CO2, it doesn't change the composition of CO2, regardless of the method we use for the production of CO2. So that's why you're trying to ascertain. You're trying to get to know if this obeys the law of constant proportion. So let's say 5.2 gram of CO2 contains 1.42 gram of carbon. And then after that, how much oxygen do we have? We're just going to do the mass. 5.2 minus 1.42. 5.2 minus 1.42. I'll give us 10, it's 8, it's 4, it's 7. We have a 3.78 gram of oxygen. So the next result we got from the different method of production, the first one was gotten by heating strongly calcium tricarbonate 4. The second was gotten by heating carbon and excess oxygen. So let's see if we got the same sample of CO2. So 4.3 gram of CO2 contains 3.1 gram of oxygen. So if 4.3 gram of CO2 contains 3.1 gram of oxygen, it means how much mass of carbon do we have in this very portion or in this very sample? 4.3 minus 3.1 will give us 1.2. So this is 1.2 gram of carbon. So how do we get to know if this law obeys if this whole experiment obeys the law of constant composition? The science we solve for that. So we're going to be checking the percentage, that percentage or the proportion or the ratio of carbon to oxygen in each of the samples. So first of all, carbon, we have a 1.42 gram of carbon over 5.2 gram of carbon times 100 over 1. We're going to be doing that. That's for the first sample. So the second, oxygen, we have 3.78 gram of oxygen over 5.2 gram of oxygen times 100 over 1. So that's that for the first sample. Then for the